Many people were quite vocal about how much they disliked Panic! At the Disco's transition from a rock band to a pop band. I personally never really minded because they're a band that throughout their entire career have constantly changed their sound. Their first album, A Fever You Can't Sweat Out, was a great mixture of pop punk and also techno in some places. Their second album, Pretty Odd, was a psychedelic pop album inspired by the Beatles and the Beach Boys. And their third album, Vices and Virtues, was this very weird blend of pop rock and pop punk. So it wasn't like they had never done anything different before. So I accepted the hip hop and synth pop sound on Too Weird to Live, Too Rare to Die. Although after revisiting that album I do think it's probably one of their weakest albums, I still think it's a solid album with some really catchy and fun songs. Their new album Death of a Bachelor brings back this sound but actually adds a lot of rock elements into some of the songs too. Guitars are much more present on this album than their previous release. People have also been very vocal about how much they hate the fact that Brendon Urie is now the only songwriter in the band. In fact, he is the only official member in the band now, so this album is more of a Brendon Urie solo album. I can definitely see why people would hate this. I don't have a problem with bands that pretty much have one primary songwriter in the studio and then bring people into the band when they do it live. Tame Impala do this very well, but I guess the difference is that Tame Impala were like that from the beginning. Panic! At the Disco started as a proper band who created songs as a band. So the fact that it's just one member releasing music under the name is a bit shitty, and it's very obvious that he's only doing it so he can keep fans of the band who may not listen to his solo stuff listening. Plus, he can also perform these new songs live and bring along a crowd of people who love their old stuff and have only come to hear that. But we're getting sidetracked now. What did I think of Death of a Bachelor? Honestly, I was more impressed than I expected I would be, but it's a far from perfect album. First off, this album is full of incredibly fun and catchy pop songs. Songs like Victorious, Don't Threaten Me with a Good Time, and Emperor's New Clothes are all examples of this. They're beautifully produced, lyrically pretty good, and vocally performed perfectly. Brendon Urie is one of my favourite vocalists ever, and I think this album has without a doubt the best singing on any Panic! Album. The songs Emperor's New Clothes and the title track have some incredibly high notes that he hits really well. The title track is one of the more different songs on the album. It has an almost Frank Sinatra-esque sound mixed in with more modern pop production. The melodies and chord progression sound very much like a traditional pop song from the 1950s, but there are hip-hop inspired drum loop playing throughout the track. Brendon's voice is absolutely incredible on this track. I personally think this is one of the best tracks on the album. I like that it breaks away from the sound of most of the other songs and does something very different. There are a few different songs on the album that are obviously inspired by similar things to the title track. Songs like Crazy Equals Genius have horn sections that sound like a classic pop song. However, I think this song doesn't do it as perfectly as Death of a Bachelor does. I think this is one of the weakest songs on the album, mainly due to the lyrics. The lyrics on this track are really not very good. The song Hallelujah uses a similar sound but is much more modern pop based, but I think this song does it way better. If you saw my worst songs of 2015 list, you may remember that I put this song on the honourable mentions. Okay, I now really regret that. I mean, this is not a great song. The problems I have with it are still very present, but it's nowhere near as bad as I thought it was. It's very catchy and the chorus is designed to become a large sing-along at their concerts. Victorious is a really pretty good pop rock song. It's one of the few songs in the album that has a large presence of guitars. I really like the melodies on this song. In fact, I really like this song as a whole. I just found it so much fun to listen to. Lyrically, it's one of the strongest tracks on the album and is actually co-written by Rivers Cuomo, which is pretty cool, even if there were 6 other writers on the track. The song Don't Threaten Me with a Good Time is another highlight for me. It starts off with a sample of the B-52 song Rock Lobster. I personally really like the idea of them using a sample of a different song because they utilise it really well. The melodies on the verse actually sound like something that could have come from Panic's first album. In fact, if it was played with guitars and real drums instead of pianos and electronic drums, then it really would have sounded like that. There's also a silly line in there where Brendon sings, "I'm not as think as you drunk I am," and that line really made me laugh. But without a doubt, the highlight of this album for me is Emperor's New Clothes. Similar to many of the other tracks, it has horn sections in there that gives it a very classic pop sound, but at the same time, everything sounds incredibly polished and modern. The production work is absolutely flawless. It never sounds overly crowded or minimalist. There is a lot going on and it all sounds beautiful. The song is so incredibly catchy and fun. Since it came out, I've probably listened to it a few hundred times and I'm still not bored of it. I love it so much. There are many really great things about this album. It's beautifully produced. I'm a big fan of how they blend elements of traditional pop music such as Frank Sinatra with a lot of modern pop elements. Also, they bring in some rock sounds on a few tracks here and there. The instrumentation is just so well crafted. Lyrically, this has some fantastic lyrics. I mean, with the amount of writers that are on some of these songs, you'd hope the lyrics would be good. Brendon Urie's voice sounds flawless on these tracks, except for maybe Hallelujah. However, I do have a few big problems with this album. I'd say out of the 11 tracks, there are only 6 songs that I actually like or love. The last 5 tracks on the album especially aren't the best. But to be honest, their previous 2 albums were like that also, so I can't complain too much. This album is personally my favourite of theirs since Pretty Odd. Although it is far from perfect, it's full of fun and catchy songs that I really like. I give Panic at the Disco's Death of a Bachelor an 8 out of 10.